welcome to an all new edition of Viral. I'm your host, as always, Henry Dix. Join in that conversation using the hashtag Viral here on Connect as we talk about the South Bend, Indiana mayor, Pete, I might get it wrong, Buttigieg. He is the first openly gay presidential candidate, and he has a shot to become the next POTUS? We'll see. He got some ideas. But first things first, join in the conversation using the hashtag Viral here on Connect. All right. Politics are a tough, nasty, stern business where element surprises can come out of nowhere, where you can be like this man with Trump with the loud, outrageous stuff banner he can say in his narrative, or you can be a person who has new concepts, new ideas, new ways of life, and thinks outside the box and helps try to get Americans back on their feet and run them to a new direction. Well, meet Pete Buttigieg, who is the openly gay mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He runs the city. Well, let's just give a quick backstory on how Buttigieg thrusted himself into the spotlight. Watch this.
That Buttigieg is making that big announcement today is the biggest non-secret in politics. Now, typically in elections, the voters seem to go for someone who is the opposite of the incumbent. And in this case, Buttigieg is offering himself up as the anti-Trump. In his words, he is an intellectual, laid-back, gay mayor from the Midwest who is half the age of the president.
Today I'm going to introduce the mayor, Pete Buttigieg.
The unpronounceable name, now a household name.
All eyes are on South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
It's a candidacy full of firsts. He'd be the first mayor to win a nomination, the first openly gay man in office, the first president under 40. The 37-year-old with the Boy Scout looks has cultivated quite a resume. Harvard, Rhodes Scholar, Oxford, the McKinsey consulting firm, and spending years as a U.S. Navy Reserve officer, earning a Joint Service Commendation Medal for his counterterrorism work. He's been slightly vague on political platform, but in his interview with George Stephanopoulos described his plan for Medicare.
Take a version of Medicare, you let anybody who wants to buy into it, and then if people like me are right that that's going to be a preferred option, that very naturally becomes a kind of glide path toward a Medicare for all environment.
As a devout Episcopalian, he's gained most attention for his spat with fellow Hoosier Vice President Mike Pence.
As he seeks to be that person that takes the oath of office to uphold the Constitution, he'd do well to reflect on the importance of respecting the freedom of religion of every American.
I'm not interested in feuding with the vice president, but if he wanted to clear this up, he could come out today and say he's changed his mind, that it shouldn't be legal to discriminate against anybody in this country for who they are.
All right. But additional stranger, as he's a resident of Indiana. Speaking of Indiana, his former governor and current vice president, Mike Pence, Buttigieg was asked this question about his true feelings towards Pence. And did he think Pence weighed in on Pence's feelings towards sexuality and how they will affect Buttigieg if he run because he's gay? It's a whole twist of stuff. Watch this.
Thank you for your service and your position in politics. The question I'd like to ask you is, as you pointed out, Vice President Pence is obviously quite conservative. And in regard to these conservative views in regard to religion and his sexuality, in comparison to the average voter or the voter in Indiana, let's say, are his views an aberration? Or is this really representative of the state? Or are most people more like you in your more liberal views about us as humans?
Please don't judge my state by our former governor. I think those views are so out of line with where anybody is. And look, I got to tell you, this was kind of a difficult journey for a lot of people. I mean, if you were conservative and you're from an older generation and you were brought up by people you trusted to believe that it was morally wrong to be, for example, in a same-sex marriage, and then the pace of change has happened so quickly, I've benefited from the pace of that change. But I also understand how disorienting it must be for people to have gone through that. So when we had this huge and painful controversy in 2015, when Mike Pence divided our state with this so-called Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is really a license to discriminate, provided you remembered to mention your religion as an excuse for discriminating. That's what that was. When that happened, we worked really hard to invite people who were struggling to come onto the right side of history but wanted to get there, to feel that we weren't going to judge them because they had struggled. We just wanted them on our side. But the amazing thing that happened in Indiana was that Democrats and Republicans rose up. There was a coalition of mayors, business leaders, sports leaders. I think even NASCAR put out a statement saying they were disappointed. And the business Republicans in our state revolted right alongside us progressives. And so that shows me that there is a belief in just decency that really does stand against that kind of social extremism. And my hope is that same decency can be summoned from our communities in red states and blue states to change what's happening in the politics of our country before it's too late.
Do you think Vice President Pence would be a better or worse president than President Trump?
Does it have to be between
Politics
those?
is about choices, man. You know that.
I mean, I don't know. It's really strange because I used to at least believe that he believed in I've disagreed with him ferociously on these things, but I thought, well, at least he believes in our institutions and he's not personally corrupt. But then how could he get on board with this presidency? How could somebody who, his interpretation of Scripture is pretty different from mine to begin with. Okay, my understanding of Scripture is that it is about protecting the stranger and the prisoner and the poor person and that idea of welcome. That's what I get in the gospel when I'm in church. And his has a lot more to do with sexuality and, a certain view of rectitude. But even if you buy into that, how could he allow himself to become the cheerleader of the porn star presidency? Is it that he stopped believing in Scripture when he started believing in Donald Trump? I don't know.
Like I said, Buttigieg gave a straight, honest answer, and he got to the point on, why he would run, and he don't think his sexuality should be an issue if he ran for the election against Trump. Well, his track record speaks out for itself, as a local news has stated his budget while he was visiting. Watch this.
Great momentum now in announcing that $7 million in your campaign. What is success to you? I mean, is that a number that you're going to continue to watch and say, maybe, hey, if we get to a certain number, that's when we're going to officially announce? What is your thought process on that?
We've seen just about everything that we need to see in order to make a launch. It's something you only get to do once, and so I want to make sure all of the pieces are in place. But one of the biggest things I was waiting on was to see how we would come out at the end of the quarter. With that information in now and so many encouraging signs from around the country, it won't be long before we're ready to make some news.
All right. He was running the city, and he gave a quick analysis on he saved somewhat of $1 million into his budget for his city. So Pete Buttigieg trying to say he can budget the city and how he can budget the country. So it's totally different avenues. So we'll see on how he verge on that. But speaking of that, many female voters are not convinced about why they should vote for him. And hear how he had responded. Watch this.
And we're back with the final question for presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg. And Mayor Pete, I just want you to know that my questions are almost always about policy and future-oriented questions about what you will do if you are in the Oval Office making presidential decisions. But voters, as you know, have a wider view of what controls their decision. And so I'm going to ask you this question that was given to us from Laura Gately on Twitter, who tweets as Laura Smately. And she said, "Why should I vote for him over the well-qualified female candidates I'm inclined to support as a woman choosing a president to make a difference for women and overall equality?"
Well, I think you should choose the person you think is going to make the best president. I am who I am, as everybody coming into this process is, and I'm certainly passionately committed to making sure that the top leadership in this country and in our party, just as I've worked hard to make sure it is in my administration, reflects the full diversity of the people that we serve, including making sure that there are women in the most senior positions and people of color and everyone else who's been underrepresented. I would also argue that diversity takes many shapes. And if a millennial son of an immigrant who's a gay veteran isn't part of the diversity of our party, then I don't know what else I can say. All of us brings the unique experience that we have. And I think that informs who we are and also hopefully motivates us to stand up for other people who, for whatever reasons of their own, have been othered or have been disadvantaged, so that we're all helping each other get ahead.
Pete Buttigieg, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. You have a standing invitation, open invitation to join us on this program to continue to discuss the issues in the campaign, as does every presidential candidate. We really appreciate you accepting that invitation and joining us tonight.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
He responded same way, just give him a shot. Let's see what he knows and how can he, go from there. I think women are want their candidates to be more, they're not, they want minorities. Some of them, it depends on that woman, men and women. White women tends to vote for Republicans, some of them, and some of them don't. Some of them want to go a different avenue. And, they might go to a different alternative. So, hey, to each his own. All right. And then someone was asking, is he qualified to lead the country than Trump? Here's what his response was again.
I get that might sound a little cheeky as the youngest guy in this conversation, but I actually think experience is one of the best reasons for somebody like me to be in this. I have more years of government experience under my belt than the president. That's a low bar. I know that. I also got more years of executive government experience under my belt than the vice president, and more military experience than anybody to walk into that office on day one since George H.W. Bush. So I get that I'm the young guy in the conversation, but I would say experience is what qualifies me to have a seat at this table.
He said he's more qualified than ever to run against Trump. He's more experienced than Trump. Well, Trump has been a politician for 4 years, almost 4 years. So he kind of got the experience, and he's kind of like in the U.S. Army. So he kind of got that too under his belt since George H. Bush. So, hey, he got the experience. Trump didn't have no experience. I guess now you don't have to have experience. Like Trump, he has a name, so he goes by his name. He even sat down with the Breakfast Club, and they discussed whether or not he likes Chick-fil-A, and he stands for their policies. Watch this.
What about Chick-fil-A? You like Chick-fil-A?
I do not approve of their politics, but I kind of approve of their chicken.
God damn it. You my kind of guy, man.
So maybe if nothing else, I can build that bridge. Maybe I'll become in a position to broker that peace deal.
We just live in this era of extremes. Like people can't see nuance in things anymore. And I just want us to start seeing the nuance in things again.
Well, especially because we've got to find a way to use our identities to reach other people. Because I have no clue what it's like to walk in the shoes of so many other people.
Right.
But I can talk about some of the pieces of what I carry with me and see if it rhymes with their life experience. And, I think good art has that. Good music has that. Good literature has that.
Good chicken sandwiches.
Good chicken sandwich. And good politics. Mm-hmm. Good politics ought to have that quality too. And I think we've got to get back to that before this current presidency just completely tears us apart.
Well, I guess he's thinking about the Chick-fil-A closed on Sundays. Well, that's an act that Chick-fil-A likes to follow and adopt to, since they want to be religious and that, you have to respect that. But, hey, to each his own. Chick-fil-A food is good. I like their salads. I tear the salads up. All right. As women of the View weighed in on Buttigieg's chances, let's see what their opinions were about.
This is what they say. Have no problem with a gay candidate. That's great. But are they ready for a gay president? That's the question. Well, we know this audience is. Well, we are, but How about America?
I'm ready for a qualified president.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm ready for a president who tells the truth. I am ready for a president who does not divide the country.
Yeah.
I am ready for a president who can speak in coherent sentences that include a verb and a noun.
Can I just say that we already might have had a gay president? President Buchanan was a confirmed bachelor. I'm just saying. Let me give you these facts, just so you decide. It doesn't matter if he was or he wasn't, but there is speculation.
All right, like I said, you can't deny, but if Buttigieg has a chance to be elected the first openly gay president in the United States and make history, but there are some that have second thoughts about could he do it, or is it too soon? Because they said the same about a woman becoming president, and that was too soon. So is there making changes, or the scribes are coming along? Only time will tell. But I've been Kendrick with Viral on Pete Buttigieg, if running for president. I've been Kendrick saying so long. We'll see you next time here on Viral.